Hi, welcome to the next session of BSc third semester General Chemistry, that is energy sources. Now, what are energy sources? I think this topic is very well known to you guys. You have been studying this since primary school. The sources of energy, renewable energy, non-renewable energy, artificial sources of energy, all these things we have studied. We will see an introduction here. What are the sources of energy? Just we will recollect what you have studied so far. I think you must have studied different sources of energy like wind energy, solar energy, and coal or petroleum products, and you also have studied renewable and non-renewable, different energy sources, which are renewable, which are non-renewable. Suppose we have solar, biomass, hydropower, they are all renewable, and coal, nuclear, oil, natural gas, which are non-renewable sources of energy. And you have sun as the most common source of energy, both light and as well as heat. And we have artificial sources from which you can get some energy. The most well-known artificial source is electricity. Electricity is produced by various sources like hydropower, wind, or nowadays solar. Whatever the electricity you get, you can use it for various applications, for running home appliances and various machineries, and also for getting light. So you have electricity in different forms. It may be just plugging in and switching on the light, or having this torch. So how this torch work? It is a stored form of electricity, right? It contains something called dry cell. So you must have seen these cells of different size. You must have seen of some company, the Duracell maybe AAA, AA, C, based on its size. You get different kinds of dry cell. Now what is that dry cell? Definitely from the definition you understand something is dry inside, it is not wet. So from this definition you understand there should be something else, that is wet cell. Of course there is. So dry cell is an electrochemical cell. What do you mean by electrochemical cell? How electrochemical cell works? It is totally different than electrolytic cell. Electrochemical cell, if you want to recollect, it's a cell wherein chemical energy is converted into electrical energy. So you can use that electrical energy. You run a chemical reaction, basically they are oxidation and reduction reaction, couple the reactions and get the energy through the flow of electron in the external circuit, then use that electricity for various purposes. So a dry cell is an electrochemical cell consisting of low moisture immobilized electrolyte in the form of a paste. So there are two types of cells basically, whether it is a dry cell or wet cell. There are two types of cells, that is primary cell and a secondary cell. Now what is that primary cell? It's a cell which you cannot recharge. It may be any cell. If you cannot recharge, once it is used, after the certain time it gets over, you just have to dispose it. That is called primary cell. Examples are like zinc carbon cell or Leclanché cell. The Leclanché cell, I think you must have heard it. It's also called zinc carbon cell. It was discovered by a French scientist. That's his name was Leclanché. That's why it is named in his name. And secondary cell is a type of cell which can be recharged. For example, you use mobile wherein it contains some cell, battery, right? It can be recharged. The best example is lithium ion battery, wherein your mobile contains that lithium ion battery. So that type of cells, they are called secondary cells. Okay, now let us see the construction and working principles of dry cells. How exactly dry cells, what are the different components of a dry cell. I think at home you must have seen this kind of cell. It's a dry cell. So one side you have a cap type, another side fully flat, and this is cathode and this is anode. It's written sometimes positive, negative. Remember here in electrochemical cell, cathode is positive and anode is negative, because anode is a place where the oxidation takes place. That's why it will be having lots of electrons. That's why it is negative terminal, and cathode is a terminal where the reduction takes place. Correct? That's why it loses electrons and it becomes positive. It is opposite to electrolytic cell. In electrolytic cell or normal what you have studied in electrolysis, electrolytic cell, cathode is negative, anode is positive, but here it is opposite. So cathode where the reduction takes place. If you open up this, the outer layer, that it's of some company, maybe Duracell or some company, Nippo, there are various companies which produces dry cells. So if you open up that outer layer, that is made up of some plastic or some polymer material, then you see the inside part like this, right? You'll be having brass cap, and immediately after this you will see this zinc container. It's made up of zinc, and you have brass plate again at the bottom, this kind of this brass cap here, and again cathode and anode. I mean, you must have experienced this at home. You must have opened up several times. It is easy to open from the top side, bit difficult from the bottom side, because it is closely packed. Again, it contains some other cap here, plastic cap. Sometimes you must have seen when you open the new dry cell. So this is how basically it looks. You have a dry cell, you open it up. So these are the inner parts. Immediately after opening this outer layer, you see zinc container and brass cap, and you can open this plate also. Okay, when you fully open up a dry cell, this is how it looks. You can see the various components. This is how it is dissected. See, a zinc container, that is outside part. Just after the zinc container, you have porous membrane. It looks like this. If you totally remove that, this porous membrane is kept just to avoid the direct contact of negative terminal with positive terminal, or cathode with anode, or just to avoid the contact of zinc with the inner material. This is how we can understand. That's why that porous membrane is kept. And then you go inside further. See, this one, that outside one is zinc container. Then you went inside. That is immediately after that you have porous membrane. Come inside. You will have some moisty paste. You will be having. That paste is made up of ammonium chloride and zinc chloride. So that is the main component of this dry cell. That is electrolyte. What is the electrolyte used here? Ammonium chloride plus zinc chloride paste. It is bit wet, I mean not totally wet, bit moisty type. When you open up, see, it sticks to your hands, your skin. Okay, then it's bit difficult to remove. It sticks for longer time. You have to wash again and again. So it is bit moisty because they are very thin powder. That paste is kept inside. Then you go inside further. You will see MnO2 paste plus carbon. So here what you see, just after that total inner part, which is graphite rod. After this paste, that is electrolyte, you will have MnO2 paste plus carbon. Then if you go inside further, you will be having graphite rod. Okay, graphite rod is the cathode part of it. And then you have, see, if you come from the inside, total inside, you have graphite rod. Immediately after that you have MnO2 plus carbon. Then you have ammonium chloride, zinc chloride, electrolyte. Then bit come outside, that is you have that one porous membrane cover. Then you come outside, totally zinc container. This. Hope The parts are very clear to you at this stage. Otherwise, you can just open up a dry cell at your home, maybe some old dry cell which have already been used. You can open up and visualize that. So what are the different components a dry cell is made up of? Because rather than just hearing to this, you can just experimentally visualize that. You can just open up one cell and you see it how it looks. So you can start opening from the top cap. Just remove it with the help of some help of some pucker or some screwdriver. You can remove this. Then inside part you will be able to visualize. Okay, hope you have understood. This is how it looks. And now what is anode and what is cathode? The cathode, where the reduction takes place, that is graphite rod, and anode is the zinc one. Electrolytes are ammonium chloride and zinc chloride, which are used here. And where the reaction takes place, that reduction reaction, that is of MnO2. Okay. Now these are the reactions taking place at anode and cathode. Anode, where the oxidation takes place, Zn is oxidized to Zn2 plus and releases 2 electrons. See here, Zn will be oxidized to Zn2 plus and releases 2 electrons. These electrons will travel through the external circuit and reaches cathode, that is graphite rod. If you put a bulb here in the path, then this bulb will glow. You will be able to see a light. That's how you get light, because here the electron movement takes place in the external circuit, where the 2 electrons are when zinc is oxidized to zinc 2 plus, 2 electrons whichever are released will travel through the circuit and reach the bulb, and that's where you get light. Okay, then it will reach the cathode, and cathode is a place where the reduction takes place. Reduction of MnO2 will take place by the hydrogen, which is released by reacting ammonium with electrons. Okay, now once the ammonium ions are produced, it will be pushed inside, and these ammonium ions, see, it will come towards the reduction half, these ammonium ions which are produced here, and it will react with the electrons produced by this, I mean the reduction. After this electron reaches here, so ammonium ion react with the electron, will liberate ammonia and hydrogen. Hope you have understood the reaction. See, this is anode where the oxidation takes place, because this is the zinc container, and once the oxidation takes place, 2 electrons whichever are released will be traveled through the external circuit and reaches here, and this during the oxidation Zn2 plus whichever is produced react with the ammonium chloride and liberates ammonium ions. Ammonium ions will be pushed inside. Okay, it will come towards this, because Zn2 plus will push this ammonium ion toward this, and it will react with the electrons which is produced here. After traveling through the circuit, electrons whichever are accumulated here will interact with the ammonium ions. Now these ammonium ions, when they interact with the electrons, will give hydrogen and ammonia gases. Okay, now 2 gases are released, which are ammonia and hydrogen. Now you can ask, if gases are released, that too you have hydrogen gas which is flammable, then what happens to the cell? It can expand, it can burst, it can even cause some flame or something like that. But usually it doesn't happen if the cell is constructed properly. Why? Because hydrogen, once it is produced, it will reduce the MnO2 which is present here. MnO2 will be reduced to Mn2O3. Mn plus 4 is now reduced to Mn plus 3 here. Okay, that's how hydrogen is trapped. So hydrogen is a reducing material here. It will reduce the MnO2 to Mn2O3. Now what happens to ammonia? It will react with the zinc chloride present here, and it will form zinc tetramino complex. Okay, you will get zinc tetramino chloride. Now to get the overall reaction, you combine this, you will get overall reaction as zinc, MnO2 and ammonium chloride converting to Mn2O3. MnO2 is reduced to Mn2O3, zinc is oxidized to Zn2 plus and will be deposited or accumulated in the form of zinc tetramine chloride complex, and you have water as a byproduct. Okay, so this reaction, please try to understand this, the overall reaction, which is very important. You visualize sometime, after certain period of time, maybe after some 6 months or 4 months, it will be written on that cell after continuous use how long this cell will last, and when it stops, almost period will be mentioned. So maybe after 6 months and all, you may have to dispose it. So you might see at some edges accumulation of some watery material, or you say it got rusted, it got some rust. So how it happens, it's very interesting. If you see all the reactions here, see zinc reacting with MnO2, you get zinc complex and Mn2O3, and water is also formed here. That's why you see watery material there. And how this is getting rusted? Now it's a question for you. You brought a cell, you brought a new cell, and you kept it inside at home. You didn't use it all. Even then it will be rusted. Even after some years, 2-3 years, if you open it and apply somewhere, or you put in the torch, it won't work sometime. Why? Because it got rusted, or it went bad, you say. Cell itself, it is spoiled. Now you may be surprised, without using, how it got spoiled. You never used it, you never run. So how cell is consumed? How cell will lose its period? So it is because you run the electricity. See how this is getting consumed. This reaction, when it goes faster, when this reaction will happen all the time, when you are running something, when you connect this cell to some external source, like you are illuminating some bulb, or you are putting it in radio, or maybe wall clock. So it will be in continuous run. So continuously there will be oxidation reaction as well as reduction reaction, and electrons will travel through this, and this reaction will take place. Zinc will be consumed all the time. Zinc will be converted into zinc 2 plus, Zn2 plus, and every time MnO2 is converted to Mn2O3. So after certain period of time, so MnO2 and zinc will be completely consumed. The cell will stop functioning. Correct? When this reaction will get over, when total reaction, this overall reaction, it comes to a halt when zinc and MnO2 totally gets over. Correct? But without operating also, this may get over. That's called rusting. Correct? It may happen that even if you don't use, after a certain period of time, it won't be able to function. Dry cell might stop functioning. Why? Because it so happens that it can be a driven reaction because of so many factors. Zinc can be oxidized to Zn2 plus under certain atmospheric condition. Correct? And these, once electrons are released, this will be in continuous progress. This will be taken in the right direction. So reaction will be pushed towards right all the time once it starts getting consumed. And another thing you should notice, that ammonia and hydrogen gas are released. If they are not properly trapped by this MnO2, then what happens? This ammonium chloride, whatever is produced, will accumulate, and ammonium chloride is acidic, it. Correct? Ammonia, whatever is released, ammonium ion, whatever is there, instead of taking electron from the reduction half or cathode, it may take electron from here only. See, zinc is getting oxidized to zinc 2 plus, and it releases 2 electrons. This ammonium ion, why it has to travel here? It can take up electrons here only. Then it will start consuming electrons from this oxidation side, and ammonia will be released, and gases may not be trapped properly, and it may so happen that it will get rusted. Ammonium chloride accumulation Ammonium chloride, it is acidic. This might lead to the problem of corrosion. So another way that zinc will be corroded, it is because ammonium chloride is acidic, correct? It will corrode it. The oxidation reaction will continuously run. So these are all the facts or the factors which affect the oxidation as well as reduction reactions. Now you must have realized some cells are very good, they work for longer period. Some cells are not that good, they work for very shorter period. It may get over in certain days. What is the reason behind it? So companies, they have their own mechanism of fabricating these cells. I mean, cell fabrication, they involve so many factors. How would you pack? How could you pack all this material? Or some companies must have patented of mixing some other chemicals inside, which controls this oxidation and reduction reaction far better, and which can avoid the spillage of these chemicals which are packed inside. And there may be very good fabrication here to avoid the exposure to atmosphere. All these factors matter. And remember this, based on this, you go for some cells which are very good, maybe some nowadays Duracell company, so they produce very good cell. So maybe because they must have controlled so many factors, so many mechanisms are under well control. Okay. Then applications which we have in the syllabus. Well, it has applications over wide range, like from teeny electronic devices to various big machineries, and you have lots of future scope for upgradation, like if you can increase the shelf life or you can increase the life of certain cells, of course there will be a great benefit for the companies. And well, it is always recommended to increase the lifetime of the cells. So even by 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, if you can increase, it will be a huge benefit for the nation or for the economy. So you have a very good scope for the future upgradation of these dry cells. And another important thing is you have to make it lighter. It should not be heavier. Well, most of the dry cells which are used, they are lighter, and make it further lighter so that more advantages. These are all the scope for further upgradation. You can watch this video in the YouTube available with this link. He explained very well. I mean, it's in Hindi, but that explanation is too good, I found. He has explained it very nicely. So please go through it. Then there are many references which you can read, and there are online sources which you can read about the dry cell for better understanding. Thank you for watching.